Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about the 5 altcoins that I actually loaded up on during this most recent crash. As I've mentioned in several of my videos over the past couple of days, I've been very pleased, I guess, with some of the turn of events that have happened. Obviously, I'm not particularly happy with the fact that we've all lost a whole bunch of money and whatnot, but I am very pleased in the fact that we've seen a whole bunch of people getting shaken out of the market. There's been a ton of liquidations. We saw prices drop pretty dramatically on several of the coins that I've been keeping a really close eye on, and so I was like, essentially like, this is great, let's pull the trigger, because I have been patiently waiting probably since the beginning of December to really make any sort of meaningful buys. I usually kind of trade some leverage now and again just because I get bored and I want to try and do that type of stuff, but usually it's not anything meaningful. This is probably the first time I've bought anything meaningful since probably the beginning of December at the latest, probably even more like early November, late October. So anyway, really excited to kind of share with you guys all the different things that I bought. Obviously, of course, none of this is at all financial advice. I'm just going to be telling you kind of what I did and why I did it. Obviously, you need to make your own decisions. I'm sure there are plenty of you who are going to probably strongly agree or strongly disagree with some of the different takes that I had. And so I want to just kind of show you guys what I'm thinking, how I'm thinking about it, and then you obviously can go make your own decision from there. Obviously, you are all adults, so I expect you to make decisions accordingly, because I'm not your financial advisor, I'm not your parent, I'm not anything like that. So anyway, moving on, I want to take a quick look at crypto bubbles though, just before we get into some of the things that we are seeing, because we can see a pretty mixed day on the market overall. If we look at the week, still very strongly negative. We are seeing a couple greens popping in here and there, but still definitely a red bias on, I would say, the week, and the day kind of just like mixed overall. And if we go look at the market overview, I think we can see a little bit of that, right? I mean, we see the crypto fear and greed index is back in neutral. It essentially went like almost into fear and then back up into greed, and now it's back into neutral. So fear and greed index kind of all over the place. We see the exchange liquidation maps. The volume here is actually pretty low, I would say, on the 2-day, or on the 1-day, excuse me. And then on the 7-day, obviously volume still pretty high for liquidating shorts. Longs, not much volume here just because it was all kind of wiped out. And so we did see some really ridiculous liquidations. I was actually looking on X today and I saw a post that the liquidations that we've seen over the past several days was actually larger than the amount of liquidations that we saw during the whole FTX crash, which I thought was crazy. But that just goes to show you how many more people and how much more money is in the crypto ecosystem now. There's a lot more people joining in, and the space overall is just expanding. So of course that's always good news, because a rising tide does lift all boats over a long term. Of course we are going to have these types of things happening. With the market overview and on the open interest and volume, we can see kind of at this top range is kind of bouncing around, nothing really too much going on there. We can see the market recovering a tiny bit. We're seeing a couple things moving up back into this kind of neutral range on the RSI, but again, the vast majority of the market still sitting in the weak and oversold. The average is barely out of oversold. The kind of cutoff point is 30, and we're looking at 31.35. So that's kind of where we're sitting out on the market. If we do take a super quick look at Bitcoin before we get into the various coins that I bought, sneak peek, Bitcoin is actually one of them, but I just want to show you, like, we are still looking just kind of the overall, hopefully it's becoming pretty clear to you that we are still in, I would say, a somewhat precarious situation here. If we look at Bitcoin, obviously we saw that really massive wick down. We've come back up, but then yesterday now we did see a red wick, and we're kind of sitting towards the bottom of this like little mini support range, I guess we could call it, kind of right in this area. Still not looking super strong, right? We kind of tried to break above 100K again, kind of crashed below that, and now we've kind of come up a little bit, but haven't, it looks like we may be getting rejected by that 100K number again. But again, it's almost impossible to say, particularly in the short term. I would say don't really trust anybody when it comes to kind of predicting the market short term, because honestly, truly, nobody knows, especially in the crypto market. I feel like it's very manipulated. So, I mean, it's almost impossible to tell. But we can see we are sitting at the very bottom of this Bollinger Band still. So that could lend credence to the argument that we would see a move to the upside, just because we have been kind of outside of the Bollinger Band for a handful of days now, that, maybe we start to see a move to the upside. Again, hard to know for certain, but given that we are kind of already at the bottom of the Bollinger Band, that to me at least lends support to the argument that we're not going to be seeing too aggressive of a move to the downside, but we could see a prolonged move to the downside. I think if we were to see a move down, it probably would get stopped kind of at this like 91 to 93 range, as we have seen multiple times before. Then if we break below this, and particularly if we even get kind of down to like this 89 range, and we're breaking kind of like below here, I would say, then things, I would say, look a little bit bleak, and this could kind of signal the initial like end of the bull market. Now again, if we see a rogue wick coming down and maybe hitting 85, I'm not going to say that that's the end of the bull market, but if we do start to see kind of a sustained move to the downside, there is that possibility. Again, nobody knows for sure, but if you are interested in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, you're trying to load up on more stuff while we are kind of sitting in this consolidation type of market, feel free to use my link in the description below to BTCC. I am still doing that 10% bonus on first time deposits. They also have up to $10,055 per user in extra bonuses, and then also no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that you're interested in. So a lot of different options there. As I kind of have been mentioning, I obviously made some pretty substantial buys. We're up a little bit from where we started seeing some of those buys, but usually, again, when we see this type of move to the upside, we'll just take a quick look here. If we look from bottom to top, kind of on that most recent pump, we saw about an 83% run from about the beginning of October to the end of December, about 2-ish months time. Yeah, roughly about 2 months, seeing about an 85% bump. If we were to see something there like this from bottom to top, I guess this is technically the bottom, we would see Bitcoin topping out somewhere at around 160, 165, maybe even 170K. Again, if we saw something like we saw basically through the majority of 2024, and then going on, we saw that really, really nice run. So if we see a similar type of run, that's entirely possible. And then, maybe that happens over the course of a couple months. So, a lot of things starting to come together is where we see as possible cycle tops, things like that. I do think, this kind of two-leg move to the upside could signal or lend credence to the argument that we see that kind of 160 to 170 top. Hard to say for certain. But anyway, going back, I want to talk a little bit more about some of my other picks, because obviously, if we go here, Bitcoin number one, I'm always looking to accumulate more Bitcoin. There's a lot of people particularly who are very like crypto native, they just want Bitcoin, right? That's why Bitcoin holds its price so well. That's why people are always buying it. Like there's just such a strong buyer base to Bitcoin that it's very, very easy to kind of hang on to over a long period of time. Of course, the bear markets usually aren't particularly great, but it's a pretty rock solid asset, definitely the best in the class for sure. After that, I did actually load up a little bit more on Ethereum than Solana, but I did load up almost equally on both Ethereum and Solana. Both of these, essentially, I do think we probably will see that. This is a little bit of a hot take because I don't think we've seen anything, at least right now, that lends to the argument that we have any sort of optimism to see out of Ethereum. But that's kind of why I got into it anyway, right? Is because there's really no optimism, there's really no belief, there's none of that in Ethereum right now. And that to me is the perfect type of sentiment as to why we could really start to see ETH take off pretty quickly, and then people start piling in. And so I was a buyer on ETH for that reason. I also am very interested in the base ecosystem. We can see, a base native project here. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm pretty interested in the base ecosystem. So that was another reason that I got some ETH, is just to kind of transact into that base ecosystem. Solana, of course, Solana is one of my largest holdings. I've been holding on to Solana for quite a while now. Still very, very happy with Solana. If you saw my video yesterday, I don't think Solana is anywhere close to stopping. I think we can see some pretty good moves out of Solana coming up here soon. So that's another reason why I did get into some Solana. And then also, I was probably the biggest buyer on ICP. If it wasn't my biggest buy, it was my second, probably behind Bitcoin. But I went very, very heavy into ICP. Some of you might think I'm crazy. Some of you might, look at the chart and be like, "What the heck are you doing?" I can't really argue with what we've seen on the chart. All I can tell you is what I say basically in every single ICP video that I make. Check out my most recent one if you are interested in kind of learning a little bit more about ICP and why I'm so optimistic on it. But just the fundamental, news, the developments, all of that type of stuff that we are seeing out of ICP, it's just too big to ignore, in my opinion. I think at some point in time, people are going to have to face the music and realize that of what ICP is doing. I think we're starting to see that happening in very slow motion. We can see this kind of with the HBAR partnership. Hedera essentially partnered with ICP because they were super, super bullish on basically everything that ICP can do. There's kind of this arms race to develop on Bitcoin. People can see that ICP can already actually do it. So there, a lot of the most successful projects on Bitcoin, at least developed over the past year or so, have been via ICP. Cardano is now looking at potentially partnering with ICP for the same exact reason. I mean, there's so many things going on here that I think it's going to be too hard to ignore at some point here in the near future. And so I view this as a very, very much asymmetrical upside. If we do just take a super quick look at the chart here, actually let's take a look on BTCC, just because I've got a lot more of my charting and stuff there. But if we take a look at the chart here, it looks very weak. I will be the first to admit that. But what we can see here is it, from like an asymmetrical risk perspective, it looks very, very good, because we can see it actually, this wick broke below some of the support lows that we saw prior to the post-election run-up. So definitely not looking good from that perspective. But again, like I said, if we look from like an asymmetric upside type of play, we've got potentially, what is this, almost a 3x just to hit the highs we saw in 2024. This isn't talking about anything of what could happen in alt season, none of that. This is just to hit what we saw in 2024. And so that in its own right, in my opinion, from like a price action movement, like we've seen in the recent history less than a year ago, that this price target can be achieved, which means it could, if we see any sort of reasonable alt season, we probably are looking at prices similar to this, right? In my opinion, given the like fundamental data and things that we've been seeing, the growth of the network, all that type of stuff, this to me looks good. So right there, easy 3x in my opinion. And then from there, we can really start to dream. Obviously, I've talked about, $100 ICP, $250 ICP, a lot of that type of stuff. I mean, if we have projects like Cardano and HBAR and maybe some others start throwing their weight into ICP because they see that if they want to be competitive, they have to do this, then I think we can see some pretty wild stuff happening for ICP, and that's where we maybe hit some of these like ridiculous targets to the upside. And usually there is an alt that kind of blows people's minds and takes everybody by surprise, and just given kind of what we're seeing, both with just how underappreciated the chart is, as well as how underappreciated just kind of the overall technology is, but people slowly starting to figure it out. This to me looks like we could be setting up for a really, really crazy run. So that's why I was a huge buyer on ICP. Obviously, you need to make your own decisions, not financial advice, all that good type of stuff. This is admittedly a risky play. Like from a purely technical analysis perspective, I know it does not look particularly good, but that's why I don't do just technical analysis. I do technical analysis as well as fundamental analysis. And it's one of those things where if I'm wrong, so be it, right? It is what it is, and I'm at least happy knowing that like I believe in what they're doing and I think it makes sense. And if I'm wrong and the market disagrees with me, well, it is what it is. And then the last one that I want to talk about is Virtuals Protocol. Virtuals Protocol is one that I've been talking about on the channel for quite a while now. When we kind of initially got into it, again, if we look at the chart, we'll actually look at the chart here, just because BTCC's chart isn't fantastic for virtuals. When we started looking into Virtuals Protocol, I think it was somewhere in this point. So it had already seen a really strong move up. It was consolidating. I felt reasonably comfortable that it would continue a move. I didn't think it was going to do that kind of move. But so anyway, I kind of largely sat it out just because I usually, at this point in time, it had already 3x'd. I almost never buy when we see that type of movement in that type of time period. So I kind of sat it out. I was considering being a buyer down at this 270 range, because again, this looked to be a pretty decent level of support. Blew right through that, so I didn't really do too much there. At the $2 range, I actually did start to move some funds over to base, and I was actually planning on getting in here, but then we got to see this market crash, which actually got me a much better entry point. So here what we can see is, we've got a market cap of under $1 billion now. The reason why is, so we've got this fully diluted valuation at the 1.4, but the circulating supply, I believe this is because it's been locked up, not for vesting, but for staking, if I remember correctly, within the AI agents, because you need to actually go in and actually contribute virtuals to the agents to get them to participate or to come alive or whatever. I think they say make them sentient, but so ultimately that's why you need to do that. And so that's why we're seeing a constrained circulating supply here. And so we can see, not even above $1 billion at this point in time. So this, to me, the risk reward is starting to look a little bit better. As we can see, we are starting to see, a little bit of some support and resistance levels here that we are coming back to. So again, I do think, there is the possibility that we do come back down to this 50-cent range if we do break through these support levels. I'm not saying that that's not possible. I do think it is entirely possible that maybe does happen. If it does, though, I didn't really go super heavy into virtuals. I obviously did buy virtuals, but I didn't go super heavy because this is a small market cap coin. This is, moving very, very violently. And so, I didn't want to go in too heavy and then have it go down to 50 cents, just because I do know that is an option. So if we do see that price come back down to that 50-cent range, I'll probably be a even bigger buyer at that point, just because I do think what they're doing is definitely compelling. Whether it wins or not, I'm not totally sure, but it seems kind of some of the incentives that they built within their ecosystem, the development team, the traction that they've seen early, the mind space that they control, a lot of that type of stuff is really definitely working out in their favor so far. So overall, I'm pretty happy with what we've seen out of Virtuals Protocol, and this to me seemed like a price that it was at least good to start an entry into. whether we continue on that forever or not, hard to say. But I am very interested. I'm essentially taking the bet that we are going to see an altcoin season, right? So a lot of these I do think are going to go up, which is obviously why I was buying and not selling yesterday or a couple days ago. So that's the way I'm looking at the market. Obviously, if you disagree with me, probably not a fantastic time to be buying, because if you do think we have seen the tops, we are well away from the bottoms. So definitely this would be like a go walk away angle and come back in like maybe 2 years or so. So there were a couple other things that I did buy. They were very, very small in market cap. I'm always a little bit nervous about those just because I don't think particularly new people really understand the gravity of some of these micro cap coins and what they can do. So I've been a little bit nervous to share those. If you are interested in those, just let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to know your guys' take just as the viewer. I really, even though I don't provide financial advice and I don't want people acting on my advice, I do understand that like there is a level of people taking what I say seriously. They're probably, hopefully, not actually like making investment decisions based on what I say, but they do consider it at least with some weight, right? And so, what I'm careful of is I don't want to like push that too far, which is generally why I try to stay to some of the larger market cap cryptos. Like I said, I'd love to hear in the comment section below what your thoughts are with that. Like, do you want to hear about some of these micro caps? Do you understand fully the risk that's involved with some of these? A lot of that type of stuff, just because I'd be interested to know. So anyway, hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe. I do like making these videos now and again. I know they can get kind of boring to watch every single day, but when we see crazy events like this happen, I do want to keep you guys just generally updated with kind of how I'm viewing the market and the actions that I'm taking to kind of go work within this market. So anyway, like I said, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, a like and a subscribe really does help me out. And also, like I said, leave the comments. I do try to read and respond to all of those. And I'm genuinely interested to see what you guys think about this whole, kind of what size of coins should I be talking about? Should I be talking about any, all that type of stuff? I'm definitely gonna be talking about coins, but I'd just be interested, kind of what your guys' thoughts are there. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.